The millionaire, married for 3 years, finds his black beggar never belonged to anyone. Jake Thompson, Manhattan's golden boy, stood on top of the world, or at least his penthouse overlooking Central Park. Years of hustling, of playing the game harder and smarter than anyone else, had earned him this view, this life. But even with the city lights twinkling beneath him, a shadow lingered. He thought marrying Sarah would chase it away. Sarah, with her quiet smile and calming presence, seemed like the perfect escape from the sharks he swam with daily. 3 years. 3 years of fancy dinners, weekend getaways to the Hamptons, and a carefully curated life together. He thought they were happy. He needed to think they were happy. Tonight was their anniversary. The Gilded Lily, a restaurant so over the top it made him cringe, was Sarah's choice. He'd almost choked on his expensive champagne when she suggested it. The ice clinked in his glass, a nervous rhythm mirroring the butterflies, or maybe they were wasps, buzzing in his gut. He had a surprise for her, a diamond necklace, the kind that cost more than most people's houses. But token of his affection? Guilt? He wasn't sure anymore. But before he could even fumble with the velvet box, Sarah spoke. Her voice was a whisper, barely audible above the smooth jazz. Her eyes, usually bright and full of a gentle warmth, were clouded, almost haunted. "Jake," she started, her gaze fixed on the flickering candle between them. "There's something I need to tell you." His stomach dropped. Was this it? Was she leaving? Another deal gone south, this time the most personal one of all. I've never really belonged to anyone." His mind reeled. What the hell did that even mean? Was she seeing someone else? Was this some cryptic way of saying she was bored? Unhappy? His grip tightened on the champagne glass. He noticed every late night at the office, every business trip she didn't question, every forced smile across the breakfast table. Then she dropped the bomb. I'm still a virgin, Jake." The restaurant faded. The clinking of silverware, the hushed conversations, the waiter hovering nearby, all gone. It was just him, Sarah, and those impossible words hanging in the air like a toxic cloud. 3 years, a shared bed, and nothing. He felt a surge of rage, a white-hot fury that threatened to consume him. The trail stung him, sharp and bitter. But beneath the anger, a strange, sickening wave of pity washed over him. Before he could even form a question, a movement by the bar caught his eye. A man. His face was lined with a sadness that mirrored Sarah's. Their eyes met. A flicker of recognition passed between them. A silent communication that excluded Jake completely. The man raised his glass in a mock toast, a knowing smirk playing on his lips. A cold dread, colder than the champagne, than the ice around the diamonds still hidden in his pocket, gripped Jake's heart. Who was this guy? And what the hell was really going on? The necklace lay heavy on the table, a worthless trinket in a game he didn't even know he was playing. His perfect life was crumbling, and he had absolutely no idea what was coming next. Was Sarah a victim, a liar, or something else entirely? And could he ever trust her again? The night was young, and Jake Thompson's world was about to get a whole lot uglier. Ei, antes de continuarmos com essa história incrível, preciso te fazer um alerta importante. Muitos inscritos têm relatado que o YouTube removeu suas inscrições sem aviso. Dá só uma conferida rápida no botão vermelho aí embaixo para garantir que você ainda está inscrito no canal. Não quero que você perca nenhum conteúdo exclusivo que vem por aí. E já que você tá aí, deixa aquele like poderoso que me ajuda muito com o algoritmo. E me conta nos comentários, de qual cidade você tá assistindo? Adoro conhecer cada pessoa incrível que faz parte dessa comunidade. Sua participação faz toda a diferença. Vamos interagir. His perfect life was crumbling, and he had absolutely no idea what was coming next. Was Sarah a victim, a liar, or something else entirely? And could he ever trust her again? The night was young, and Jake Thompson's world was about to get a whole lot uglier. The silence stretched, thick and suffocating. He felt like he was underwater, the restaurant noises muffled and distant. Sarah's eyes pleaded with him, but he couldn't decipher what they were saying. Confusion, fear, maybe even a desperate kind of hope. A virgin? He finally managed, the words sounding foreign even to his own ears. After 3 years? How? Sarah's breath hitched. It's complicated. Yeah, that was the understatement of the century. He needed answers, real answers, not some cryptic, half-baked explanation. He was about to demand them when the man at the bar started moving. Slow, deliberate steps, like a predator stalking its prey. Jake tensed, his gut screaming danger. The man reached their table. "Sarah," he said, his voice low and gravelly, "it's time." Jake stood up, pushing his chair back with a screech that cut through the restaurant chatter. "Who the hell are you? And what do you think you're doing?" The man ignored him, his focus solely on Sarah. He reached into his coat pocket. Jake braced himself, expecting a weapon. Instead, the man pulled out a small, worn leather pouch. He opened it, revealing a handful of dust. Jake frowned, utterly bewildered. What was this? Some kind of weird performance art? Then the man spoke words that sounded ancient, alien, completely out of place in the opulent gilded lily. And that's when it happened. The chandelier above them shattered, sending shards of crystal raining down. People screamed. The lights flickered, plunging the restaurant into near darkness. A wind howled through the room, even though all the windows were closed. Tables overturned, silverware clattered, and the air crackled with energy. It was chaos, pure and unadulterated. But Jake only saw Sarah. Her eyes widened, her body convulsing. A blinding white light erupted from her, so intense it seared his vision. He shielded his eyes, gasping. When he could see again, Sarah was different. Taller, stronger, her features sharpened, her eyes glowing with an otherworldly light. Her dress shimmered, morphing into something that looked less like fabric and more like molten gold. The terrified screams around him faded into a dull roar. He was transfixed, unable to look away. Then she spoke, her voice no longer the soft, hesitant whisper he knew. It was powerful, resonant, echoing through the shattered remains of the restaurant. "I am not Sarah," she declared, her gaze sweeping across the room, silencing the remaining cries. "I am Astraea, and I have returned." Returned? Astraea? The goddess of justice? What in God's name was happening? He stumbled back, his mind reeling. 3 years. 3 years he'd been married. To a frickin' goddess? The man from the bar, No, not a man. Her protector, her something, placed a hand on her arm. The time has come, Astraea. They have strayed too far. Justice must be served. He looked at Jake, a cold, assessing gaze that made his blood run cold. You are spared. You were useful. Useful? What did that even mean? He was just a pawn? A tool in some cosmic game? The diamond necklace still lying on the table seemed to mock him, a pathetic symbol of his ignorance. Astraea raised her hand. Let the reckoning begin. And then the screaming started again. Not screams of fear, but screams of agony. The patrons of the Gilded Lily, Manhattan's elite, clutching at their chests, collapsing onto the floor. Their bodies twisted, their faces contorted in unimaginable pain. The air filled with the stench of sulfur and burning flesh. Jake stared in horror, unable to move, unable to breathe. This wasn't just a bad deal. This wasn't just a broken marriage. This was something biblical. Was this the woman he loved? Or something far more terrifying? The door swung open and in came a police officer. What in God's name? He never finished his sentence. He grabbed at his heart and dropped like a stone on the floor. The whole world was ending. The whole world was ending. Jake just stood there, frozen. Astraea, a goddess, his wife, killing people. It was too much, way too much. He wanted to scream, to run, to disappear. But he couldn't move. He was trapped. And then she turned to him. Not the terrifying, radiant Astraea, but Sarah. For just a split second he saw her. The gentle warmth in her eyes, the slight curve of her lips, he knew so well. A silent plea. And then it was gone, replaced by the cold, unwavering gaze of a being he didn't recognize. Jake, she said, her voice still resonating with power. You will serve me. Serve her? After everything? He wanted to laugh, but the sound caught in his throat. He was a pawn, always had been. But then, a thought sparked in his mind, a tiny ember of defiance. Serve her or use her? He looked at the bodies on the floor, the rich, the powerful, the deserving. A strange feeling washed over him. Not pity, not anymore. Something else. Something akin to satisfaction. These were the people he'd clawed his way through. The people who'd looked down on him. And now, they were gone. What do you want me to do? He asked, his voice surprisingly steady. Astraea smiled. A chilling, beautiful smile that sent shivers down his spine. The world is corrupt, Jake. It needs to be cleansed. And you know where the rot lies. He did. Oh, he did. He knew all the secrets, all the dirty deals, all the hidden agendas. He knew who was truly guilty. And now, he had the power to do something about it, with a goddess by his side. But then, a new voice cut through the chaos. A voice he knew. A voice he loved? Dad? Jake's head snapped around. Standing in the doorway, amidst the carnage, was Lily, his daughter. His Lily. But how? He hadn't seen her in years. Not since... Lily, what are you doing here? He stammered, his heart pounding in his chest. Lily's eyes were wide with terror. But there was something else there, too. A steely resolve. I know what you're doing, Dad. and it has to stop. He stared at her, confused. How could she possibly know? Then he saw it, a faint glow around her. An otherworldliness, like Astraea. You're one of them? He whispered, his voice cracking. Lily shook her head. Not like her. I'm something else. Something. To balance her. Balance her? What the hell was going on? His wife was a goddess, and his daughter was what? An angel? A demon? He couldn't process it. His world was spinning out of control. Astraea's eyes narrowed. You, she hissed, turning her gaze on Lily. You were supposed to be gone. I know, Lily said, her voice trembling but firm. But I couldn't let you do this, Astraea. Not like this. And then Lily raised her hand, and the same blinding white light that had transformed Sarah engulfed her. But this time, it felt different, purifying, hopeful. Jake didn't know what to do. Who to believe? His wife or his daughter? God versus whatever Lily was. He was caught in the middle of a cosmic battle, and he had no idea how to survive. But one thing was clear. He had to protect Lily, even if it meant turning against Astraea, Sarah, his wife. He took a step towards his daughter, his hand outstretched. Lily, he said, his voice barely a whisper. What do we do? But before Lily could answer, Astraea screamed. A blood-curdling scream that echoed through the shattered restaurant. And then everything went black. And then everything went black. Just like that. 1 second, the screaming, the light, Lily reaching out. The next, nothing. Total darkness. He blinked, waited. Was he dead? Was this what it felt like? Empty, silent. Then a voice, soft, familiar. Jake? He knew that voice, knew it better than his own. But it couldn't be. Mom, he croaked, his throat dry. And then light. Not the blinding white light of the goddess, but a warm golden glow. He was standing in a field, green grass, blue sky, a gentle breeze. And there she was, his mom. Younger, happier, just like he remembered her. Jake, honey, she said, smiling. What are you doing here? He stared at her, dumbfounded. This was impossible. She'd been gone for 20 years. Mom, I don't understand, he stammered. What is this? She took his hand, her touch warm and comforting. This is where you belong, Jake. Your home. Home, it felt right, peaceful. But Lily, Astraea, the chaos he'd left behind. Mom, I can't stay, he said, pulling away. I have to go back. My daughter. Her smile faded. Lily is strong, Jake. She'll be all right. But Astraea. Sarah made her choices, Jake, his mom interrupted, her voice firm. You can't save everyone. But he had to try, didn't he? He looked around, the field, the sky, his mom's loving gaze. It was tempting, so tempting, to just stay here, to forget everything. But then, a flicker, a memory, Lily's face, terrified but determined. He couldn't abandon her. I'm sorry, Mom, he said, tears welling up in his eyes. I have to go. He closed his eyes, braced himself, willed himself back. And then, pain. A searing, agonizing pain that ripped through his body. He gasped, his eyes snapping open. He was back. The gilded lily. Shattered. Destroyed. Bodies everywhere. But something was different. Astraea and Lily were gone. Vanished. And standing in their place was him. Jake Thompson. But not him. Not the Jake he knew. This Jake was younger, stronger, and wearing clothes he hadn't seen in decades. His football jersey, the one he wore in high school. The Jake who had died in a car accident. Years ago, he stumbled back, his mind reeling. This wasn't possible. It couldn't be. Then, the younger Jake spoke, his voice deep and unfamiliar. "Hello, Dad," he said, a cruel smile spreading across his face. "Miss me?" What in the actual hell was going on? And then, everything went black. Just like that. 1 second, the screaming, the light, Lily reaching out. The next, nothing. Total darkness. He blinked, waited. Was he dead? Was this what it felt like? Empty, silent. Then a voice, soft, familiar. Jake? He knew that voice, knew it better than his own. But it couldn't be. "Mom?" he croaked, his throat dry. And then, light. Not the blinding white light of the goddess, but a warm, golden glow. He was standing in a field. Green grass, blue sky, a gentle breeze. And there she was, his mom, younger, happier, just like he remembered her. "Jake, honey," she said, smiling. "What are you doing here?" He stared at her, dumbfounded. This was impossible. She'd been gone for 20 years. "Mom, I don't understand," he stammered. "What is this?" She took his hand, her touch warm and comforting. "This is where you belong, Jake. Your home." Home. It felt right. Peaceful. But Lily, Astraea, the chaos he'd left behind. "Mom, I can't stay," he said, pulling away. "I have to go back, my daughter." Her smile faded. "Lily is strong, Jake. She'll be all right." "But, Astraea..." "Sarah made her choices, Jake," his mom interrupted, her voice firm. "You can't save everyone." "But he had to try, didn't he?" He looked around, the field, the sky, his mom's loving gaze. It was tempting, so tempting, to just stay here, to forget everything. But then, a flicker, a memory. Lily's face, terrified but determined. He couldn't abandon her. "I'm sorry, Mom," he said, tears welling up in his eyes. "I have to go." He closed his eyes, braced himself, willed himself back. And then, pain. A searing, agonizing pain that ripped through his body. He gasped, his eyes snapping open. He was back. The gilded lily, shattered, destroyed. Bodies everywhere. But something was different. Astraea and Lily were gone, vanished, and standing in their place was him, Jake Thompson. But not him, not the Jake he knew. This Jake was younger, stronger, and wearing clothes he hadn't seen in decades. His football jersey, the one he wore in high school. The Jake who had died in a car accident years ago. He stumbled back, his mind reeling. This wasn't possible. It couldn't be. Then the younger Jake spoke, his voice deep and unfamiliar. "Hello, Dad," he said, the cruel smile spreading across his face. "Miss me? What in the actual hell was going on?" You died," Jake stammered, taking another step back. "It was him, no doubt about it. His face, his eyes, even the way he stood. But it was impossible. Did I?" Younger Jake chuckled, a cold, unsettling sound. "Or did I just go away for a while?" Jake's head was spinning. This was beyond comprehension, beyond anything he could have imagined. Astraea, Lily, the goddess, the apocalypse, it all faded in comparison to this. What are you?" he managed to croak out. Younger Jake tilted his head, his eyes glinting with something dark and predatory. "Let's just say I'm a consequence, a side effect. You messed with things. You shouldn't have, Dad. And now, here I am." "But, Lily?" Jake asked, desperate for some explanation, some anchor to reality. "Astraea? Where did they go?" Younger Jake shrugged. "Gone. Doesn't matter. They serve their purpose. Now it's just you and me." He took a step closer. Time for a little family reunion. A wave of nausea washed over Jake. This couldn't be real. It had to be a dream, a nightmare. But the smell of blood, the shattered glass under his feet, the cold, cruel look in his son's eyes, it was all too real. "What do you want?" Jake asked, his voice trembling. Younger Jake stopped, just a few feet away. He reached out, his hand hovering over Jake's chest. "I want what you took from me. I want my life back." Jake's heart pounded in his chest. What did he mean? What had he taken? "I don't understand," he said pleadingly. Younger Jake laughed. "Oh, you will, Dad. You will. It's time to pay the price for your ambition, for your success, for forgetting about me." And then he lunged. Jake didn't even have time to react. Younger Jake grabbed him, his grip surprisingly strong. He felt a sharp, searing pain in his chest, like his heart was being ripped out. He gasped, his vision blurring. What are you doing?" he managed to choke out. Younger Jake leaned in close, his voice a venomous whisper in Jake's ear. "I'm taking back what's mine, Dad. Your life, your success, your everything." And then everything went black again. But this time, it was different. This time, there was no gentle light, no comforting voice. This time, there was only darkness, and a chilling certainty that this was the end. Or was it just the beginning? Because when Jake opened his eyes again, he wasn't in the Gilded Lily. He wasn't in a field with his mom. He was standing in a mirror, and staring back at him was younger Jake, wearing his clothes, living his life, and smiling a cold, cruel smile that sent a shiver down his spine. Jake Thompson was gone, and his son was back, and he had plans. Jake Thompson was gone, and his son was back, and he had plans. The reflection smirked. The face was his, but not really. The eyes were colder, harder, more calculating. He raised a hand, admiring the familiar lines, the calluses he knew so well. But it wasn't his hand anymore. It was borrowed. "Well, well, well," the reflection said, his voice a chilling echo of Jake's own. "Look who's back in the driver's seat." Panic flared. He was trapped. Inside his own head? Inside his son? He tried to scream, to fight, but nothing happened. He was just a passenger now, a ghost in the machine. The reflection turned away from the mirror, his eyes scanning the opulent apartment. "Not bad, Dad. Not bad at all. You really made something of yourself." He picked up the diamond necklace, the one meant for Sarah. "A little flashy for my taste, but hey, who am I to judge?" He walked over to the window, looking out at the city lights. The same view Jake had cherished, the one he'd worked so hard to earn. But now, it felt tainted, stolen. "So," the reflection said, turning back with that same unsettling smile, "where do we begin?" He felt a surge of dread. What was he going to do? What could he do? He was powerless, a prisoner in his own life. The reflection walked over to the bar, pouring himself a drink. "First things first," he said, swirling the amber liquid in the glass. "Gotta tie up some loose ends." Loose ends? What did he mean? Sarah? Lily? His blood ran cold. The reflection took a long sip, then set the glass down with a clink. Astraea was useful, he mused, but a little too righteous for my liking. And Lily? Well, let's just say she inherited your sentimental streak. He picked up his phone, scrolling through his contacts. "But don't worry, Dad," he said, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "I'll take care of everything, just like you would have wanted." He stopped scrolling, his finger hovering over a name Jake hadn't thought about in years, a name that brought a wave of guilt and shame crashing down on him. "Ah, yes," the reflection said, his smile widening. "Time to pay a visit to Rebecca." Rebecca, his ex-wife, Lily's mother, the woman he'd abandoned years ago to chase his ambition. His heart pounded in his chest. No, he couldn't let him do this. He had to stop him. But he was powerless. The reflection walked out the door, leaving Jake trapped in the darkness. He had to find a way out. He had to save them. But how? Then a flicker, a memory. Something Astraea had said. Something about balance. Lily. She was the balance, the only one who could stop him. But where was she? He focused all his energy, all his will, trying to reach her, trying to send a message, a warning. And then he saw it, the faint glimmer of light, a connection. He poured all his fear, all his love, all his desperation into that connection. "Lily," he screamed, his voice silent but desperate. "He's coming for you. You have to stop him." And then a voice, not Lily's, a different voice. Cold, powerful, ancient. "He cannot be stopped," the voice said, echoing in his mind. "He is the consequence, the inevitable." Who was that? What was that? He tried to scream again, to fight back, but it was no use. He was trapped, helpless. And then the voice spoke again. This time, closer, more intimate. "But don't worry, Jake," it whispered. "I have other plans for you." And then everything went black again. But this time, when he opened his eyes, he wasn't in the gilded Lily. He wasn't in a field with his mom. He wasn't even in his own head. He was somewhere else. Somewhere dark, somewhere cold. And standing before him was Astraea, but not the Astraea he knew. This Astraea was different. Her eyes were black, her skin was pale, and she was smiling. A smile that promised pain. A smile that promised damnation. "Welcome, Jake," she said, her voice a chilling echo of Sarah's. "I've been expecting you." He was trapped, and he had no idea what was coming next. "Welcome, Jake," she said, her voice a chilling echo of Sarah's. "I've been expecting you." He was trapped, and he had no idea what was coming next. Astraea smiled. It wasn't a kind smile. It was the smile of someone who knew something he didn't. Something terrible. He tried to move, to run, but he was paralyzed. He could only stand there, staring into those black, empty eyes. "You thought you understood," Astraea said, her voice soft, almost a whisper. "You thought you were a player in this game, but you were just a pawn, Jake. A tool, nothing more." He wanted to argue, to deny it, but he knew she was right. He'd been used, manipulated, and now he was paying the price. "What do you want?" he managed to choke out, his voice barely audible. Astraea stepped closer, her breath cold on his face. "I want everything. I want the world cleansed. I want justice. And you, Jake, you're going to help me." Help her? After everything she'd done? After everything she'd taken from him? "I won't," he said, his voice shaking but firm. "I'll never help you." Astraea laughed, a cold, cruel sound that echoed through the darkness. "You have no choice, Jake. You belong to me now, body and soul." She reached out, her hand touching his face. He flinched, but he couldn't move away. Her touch was like ice, burning his skin. And then, everything changed. A wave of dizziness washed over him. His vision blurred. He felt his body twisting, changing. He gasped, trying to scream, but no sound came out. He looked down at his hands. They were smaller now, daintier. The nails were perfectly manicured, painted a deep crimson. He looked down at his body. It was different, too. Curvier, softer. He was wearing a dress, a flowing crimson dress that felt strangely familiar. He looked up at Astraea, his eyes wide with horror. Astraea smiled, a genuine smile this time, a smile of triumph. "Welcome, Sarah," she said, her voice dripping with satisfaction. "I knew you were in there all along." Sarah? He was Sarah? It couldn't be. It wasn't possible. He was Jake Thompson, Manhattan's golden boy. Not Sarah. But it was true. He could feel it, deep inside, a faint flicker of recognition, a buried memory. He remembered the quiet smile, the calming presence, the gentle warmth. He remembered the secrets, the lies, the carefully constructed facade. He remembered the truth. He wasn't Jake Thompson. He was Sarah, always had been. And Jake Thompson was just a role he'd been playing, a disguise. But why? Why had he pretended to be someone else? What was he hiding from? Astraea smiled again, her eyes gleaming with knowledge. "Don't worry, Sarah," she said. "You'll remember everything soon enough. And when you do, you'll understand what you have to do." He, Sarah, stared at her, his mind reeling. He didn't understand anything. He was lost, confused, terrified. And then a voice. A familiar voice. A voice that cut through the darkness and filled him with hope. "Dad?" He looked up. Standing in the shadows was Lily, his daughter. But something was wrong. She was different. Her eyes glowed with an otherworldly light. Her face was pale and drawn, and she was pointing a gun at him, at Sarah. "I'm sorry, Dad," she said, her voice trembling, "but I have to do this, for Mom." And then she pulled the trigger. "I'm sorry, Dad," she said, her voice trembling. "But I have to do this, for Mom." And then she pulled the trigger. A deafening roar, a flash of light, then nothing. He closed his eyes, bracing for the impact, for the darkness, but it didn't come. He opened his eyes slowly. Lily was still there, the gun still smoking in her hand. But she wasn't pointing it at him. She was pointing it at Astraea. And Astraea was gone. Just like that, vanished into thin air. Lily lowered the gun, her hand shaking violently. We did it," she whispered, her voice hoarse. "I actually did it." He stared at her, stunned. "But how? What just happened?" Lily took a deep breath, trying to compose herself. "I don't know exactly," she said, "but I think I overloaded her. I used her own power against her." He looked around the shattered restaurant, the bodies still lying on the floor. The horror of the past few minutes was still fresh in his mind. But somehow, Lily had managed to stop it, end it. He rushed over to her, pulling her into a tight hug. "You saved me, Lily," he said, his voice choked with emotion. "You saved us all." Lily hugged him back, her body trembling. "I had to, Dad," she said. "I couldn't let her hurt you anymore." He pulled back, looking at her closely. "But what about Mom?" he asked. "Is she gone?" Lily hesitated. "I don't know," she said. I think Astraea was controlling her, using her. Maybe there's still a part of her left inside." He clung to that hope. It was all he had. "What do we do now?" he asked. Lily looked around the restaurant, her face grim. "We clean this up," she said. "We make sure no one else gets hurt, and then we find a way to bring Mom back." He nodded, determined. "Together," he said. "We'll do it together." They started clearing the debris, moving the bodies, trying to make sense of the chaos. It was a grim task, but they worked in silence, united by their shared purpose. As they worked, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was still wrong. Something was missing. And then he realized what it was. Younger Jake. He hadn't seen him since he'd taken over his body. Since he'd trapped him in his own mind. Where was he now? A chill ran down his spine. He didn't like this. Not one bit. "Lily," he said, his voice urgent. "We need to find him. We need to find younger Jake." Lily looked up, her eyes widening. "You're right," she said. "He's still out there. And who knows what he's planning." They searched the restaurant, but there was no sign of him. He was gone. "Where do you think he went?" Lily asked, her voice filled with concern. He thought for a moment, his mind racing. "I don't know," he said. but I have a feeling he's going after Rebecca." Lily gasped. "Mom, why?" "Because he knows she's important to me," he said. "Because he wants to hurt me. And what better way to do that than to hurt the woman I love?" They had to get to her. They had to protect her. But as they turned to leave, a voice stopped them in their tracks. "Going somewhere, Dad?" They turned around slowly. Standing in the doorway was younger Jake, but he wasn't alone. Standing beside him was Rebecca, but she wasn't the Rebecca he remembered. Her eyes were cold, her face was hard, and she was holding a gun, pointing it at Lily. "Hello, Jake," she said, her voice a chilling echo of the woman he used to know. "It's been a long time." He stared at her, his mind reeling. What was going on? How could this be happening? "Rebecca," he said, his voice trembling. "What are you doing? Why are you doing this?" Rebecca smiled, a cruel, twisted smile that sent a shiver down his spine. "Don't you get it, Jake?" she said. "I'm tired of being your second choice. I'm tired of being the woman you left behind. It's time for you to pay the price." And then she said the words that shattered his world. "Younger Jake is my son. Younger Jake is my son." The words hung in the air, heavier than the shattered crystal, more suffocating than the stench of death. Jake stared at Rebecca, his mind refusing to process what she just said. His son? Younger Jake? It was impossible. Rebecca hadn't even been in his life when the accident happened. It didn't make any sense. What are you talking about?" he stammered, his voice barely a whisper. Rebecca laughed, a harsh, brittle sound that sent shivers down his spine. "Oh, Jake," she said, shaking her head. "You really thought you knew me, didn't you? You thought you knew everything." She stepped closer, her eyes blazing with a cold, hard anger he'd never seen before. "The truth is, Jake," she said, her voice dripping with venom, "younger Jake is your son, but not the son you think he is." He didn't understand. He just didn't understand. After the accident," Rebecca continued, her voice trembling with barely suppressed rage, "I was devastated, broken. You were gone, and I was left with nothing." She paused, taking a deep breath. "But then I found out I was pregnant with your son." His heart leaped. He had another son? A son he never knew? But then the hope faded, replaced by a cold, creeping dread. "But the pregnancy wasn't normal, Jake," Rebecca said, her voice dropping to a near whisper. "It was different. Something unnatural." She looked at younger Jake, her eyes filled with a strange mixture of love and fear. He wasn't just a baby, Jake. He was something else. Something dark. Younger Jake smiled, a slow, cruel smile that sent a shiver down his spine. "That's right, Dad," he said, his voice smooth and menacing. "I'm not just your son. I'm your punishment." He didn't understand. He still didn't understand. "After the accident," Rebecca continued, "I reached out to others to help me deal with my pain. I fell in with a group of women who did dark magic. I reached out to the other side to bring you back to me. And instead, I got this." Suddenly, his surroundings began to change. He was no longer in the restaurant. They were standing in a circle, dressed in hooded robes, chanting in a dark tongue. "I was so foolish, so stupid to think that this would work. that you would be mine again. But as soon as Junior was born, I realized that everything had gone horribly wrong. Please, tell me, Rebecca. Tell me what's going on, Jake cried. You want to know the truth, Jake? The real truth? Fine, get ready for it. You are nothing but a character that I created. And because you were in pain, so was I. You want to know where Astraea and Lily went? They've been banished to the deepest crevasses of my mind. And all of this, everything you've experienced, has been nothing more than a book that I'm writing. You were just a character, a figment of my imagination, a pawn in my own game. I created you so that you could relive my pain. I've suffered through losing you for so long, and that hole can only be filled with the release of publishing what's happened. No, you're lying. It can't be, Jake cried. I'm sorry, Jake, Rebecca said, tears streaming down her face. But it's true, you're not real. None of this is. Suddenly the world began to fade. The restaurant, Rebecca, younger Jake, everything was dissolving into nothingness. He was alone, lost in a void. And then a voice, a soft, gentle voice. Jake? He turned around slowly. Standing before him was his mom. But she wasn't in the field this time. She was sitting at a desk, surrounded by books. Mom? He said, his voice trembling. What's going on? What's happening to me? His mom smiled sadly. It's time to wake up, Jake, she said. It's time to come home. Home? He said, confused. But where is home? His mom reached out, taking his hand. Home, she said, her voice filled with love, is right here. And then everything went black again. But this time it was different. This time he knew what was coming. This time he knew the truth. He was just a character in someone else's story, and his story was about to end. But as the darkness closed in, a single thought echoed in his mind. If he was just a character, did that mean he had no control, or could he rewrite his own ending? And with that, Jake Thompson woke up in a bed, staring at a typewriter. All of his clothing sat on the floor next to a trash can filled with crumpled papers. He rose from the bed, picked up a t-shirt and a pair of jeans, and went to the door. Oh, Jake, I'm so glad that you're finally awake. Now we can finally get to work on Chapter 18. Oh, Jake, I'm so glad that you're finally awake. Now we can finally get to work on Chapter 18. He looked at Rebecca, really looked at her. That glint in her eyes, that wasn't malice, that was fear. Pure, unadulterated fear. And younger Jake? He wasn't smiling anymore. He was just a kid. Lost, scared. Jake had an idea. He had to gamble. Rebecca, he said, his voice calm, steady. He's not your son. Not really. He's a piece of me. The part I buried. The part I regret. Rebecca's grip on the gun wavered. And you, Jake said, turning to younger Jake, you're not me either. You're just a shadow, a reminder of what I could have been. But you don't have to be that anymore. He held out his hand. Come on, let it go. Let's end this. Younger Jake stared at him, confusion warring with anger in his eyes. You don't mean that, he said, his voice trembling. I do, Jake said. I really do. I messed up. I hurt people. But I can change. We can change. Together. For a long moment, no one moved. The air crackled with tension. Then, slowly, younger Jake reached out. His hand met Jake's, and then a light. Not the blinding white light of Astraea, but a warm, golden glow that enveloped them both. Younger Jake began to fade, his features softening, his anger melting away. I don't want this, he whispered, his voice barely audible. I just want to be happy. You will be, Jake said, squeezing his hand. We all will be. And then younger Jake was gone. Rebecca lowered the gun, her face crumpling. What just happened? She asked, her voice filled with disbelief. I think, Jake said, looking at Lily, who was staring at him with wide eyes. I think we just saved ourselves. He walked over to Rebecca, taking her in his arms. I'm sorry, he whispered. I'm so sorry for everything. Rebecca clung to him, sobbing. I don't understand, she said. I thought I hated you. I know, Jake said, but it's over now. We can start over. Together. He looked at Lily, his heart swelling with love. He'd messed up so many times. He'd hurt so many people. But somehow, he'd found his way back. Back to his daughter. Back to Rebecca. Back to himself. The restaurant was still a mess. The bodies were still there, but somehow it felt different, like the storm had passed, and maybe, just maybe, there was a chance for a new beginning. But he couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning of a new chapter, that there were still secrets to uncover, that there were still dangers lurking in the shadows. What did he forget in his previous life? What about Lily? As Jake hugged his daughter, a chilling breeze blew through the broken windows. Okay, true believers, are you breathing after that ending? Did you see that coming? I bet you didn't. But the story's not over. The adventure's just begun. You need to hit that subscribe button right now if you want to see what happens next. We've got so much more planned. Trust me, you do not want to miss out. Smash that like button. This is the moment to show your support. Every like feeds the algorithm and helps us bring you more amazing content. Inundate the comments section with your reactions. What did you think of that twist? Did you see it coming? Let's hear your theories. And most importantly, you have to share this video with at least 5 friends right now. They need to experience this craziness. Don't wait another second to share this. This video is a game changer.